the DNA of Jesus. And he saith unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter ye shall see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. That was from the book John chapter 1, verse 51. Jesus, as a divine idea, carried within his DNA metaphysical frequencies that once activated could enrich any individual with supernatural powers. With the help of his angelic host and his Father, Jesus transformed his life from the inside out. He came into this world through a transmission of power sent by God himself in order for him to discover another aspect of himself. You see, the source of all creation, prime creator, God, is forever creating for the benefit of humanity. We humans study history, but I'm going to tell you, God is the real historian, prime creator. Prime creator carries the DNA profiles of every individual on planet Earth, and for that matter, throughout all of the omniverse. Prime creator's knowledge is vast and gives those who would love to profess prime creator's name an opportunity to dig deeper into these mysterious moments. Prime creator's wisdom is truly unsearchable, as he laid the foundations of the earth without our recollection or knowledge of it. You can find the verse that I'm talking about in the book of Job, 381, verse 4. Who or what man can dispute the magnificent works of prime creator, of source, of God? That's why it's important to understand the DNA of Jesus as a set of spiritual instructions infused into this global mathematical equation for the redeeming of mankind. The plan is quite astounding if you truly think about it. Prime creator sends a genetic marker in this earthly realm equipped with the plans and purposes of his internal kingdom communal group. Now, humanity is equipped with the instructions that will lead to a spiritual awakening of the pineal gland, upon which a bright light from heaven will shine bright and spread massive amounts of love. There is a continuous climb towards the spiritual pineal gland, so look up and know that your help draws near. God's word, or the DNA of Jesus, is a light marker that will guide you into a new day. Even if you are in a dark season concerning your life, God remains in the battle as a very present help. And I'm here to testify the veracity of that statement. He is inside of you, awaiting your spiritual ascension, so he can arise and allow for your mental enemies to be scattered, and they will be scattered, made destitute. They will be made your footstools. And yes, even Satan will become your footstool, because you are the way, you are the light and the truth, and shall no man buy you, because the price has already been paid. Don't you understand? The price had already been paid. E. Cummings, the American poet, playwright, painter, essayist, and author, once said, "It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. It really takes courage to ascend spiritually and to transcend oneself into a higher state of consciousness. As a born-again believer, the mission is as simple as the recreation of a reality that has stood the test of time. Since the beginning foundations of this world took precedence, there must be a continuous evolutionary ascension into the holy of the holies, while at the same time balancing the equation with a physical gesture. In other words, in simple terminology, until perfection is reached, there is a continuous ascension up and down the many different streams of consciousness. One thing to remember is that at each different level of consciousness, it will require a different strategy from the previous one that allowed you to overcome your battles. Albert Einstein said it best by stating that you can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking you used when you created the original problem. There must be a level of spiritual, mental, and physical growth at every new cycle in your life. The universe doesn't mind letting you repeat a grade if that will help you in the long run, not make the same mistakes. It's what spiritual leaders call a setback for a setup. If you can see these types of moments for what they truly are, then you will be able to see God in action. You may not be able to see his hand at work, but trust me, he is working on your behalf and doesn't stagnate within the process. Now the strategy then becomes to draw closer to your prime creator, to get the plan of action for the next season of your life, to dispel that little ego, those thoughts, those ego thoughts of constant seeking for pleasure or whatever. Just let it go. Let it go. Clear your mind and let the God mind take control for a change. You only stop to rest and figure in how you overcome the hurdles at the next phase of your ascension. You begin to give thanks that you survived that previous season and realize that success is a process of experiences which ultimately add up to a successful end. The plan that God gives you for the impending battle comes at a real critical moment in the process. While you're resting from your previous spiritual and physical battles, here comes God laying out a new territorial map, preparing the leaders for another excursion. Isn't it amazing how strategic God is? He guides us on a process that we cannot see in order for our focus and trust to remain totally dependent on him. This is a very powerful assertion, as the flesh wants to always be in control. As a rationale for understanding the DNA of Jesus is that we believers of Christ must never try to do our own will. In John, the book of John, we read the words of Jesus. I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Part of understanding the synchronization of Jesus' DNA is that you are coming into an earthly plane already pre-programmed with life's instructions coded into your molecular structures. God spoke you into existence when he said, "Let there be light." At that very moment, the DNA of Jesus Christ came into existence. God had his Son in mind concerning the creation of his sustainable kingdom. That same DNA lives in you, lives in me, lives in all of us, and has been since the very foundation of life. The only mechanism for its release is love. Jesus' DNA speaks to the fact that he is the way, the truth, and the life, and that one must love each other enough as God has loved us. It's truly a labor of love. God's work wasn't done for his own glory and pleasure, but for our faith in a higher power. Remembering without ceasing your work of faith and labor of love. We must remember that Jesus' life was the original cosmic download. I talk about my own download on August 11th of 2021, where my life took on a new dimension. And I had to go through changes still and separating the wheat from the chaff in my own life, but it was truly a cosmic download. And that was sent to earth as a transmission of power with the spirit of excellence encoded into the very fabric of our DNA, Jesus' DNA. That download that I received, I believe, was the cosmic download of the Christ consciousness. Jesus, as a spiritual and physical force, carried all that the Father was and is in his DNA structure. This powerful notion has served humanity throughout the last 2,000 years and will be a staple in modern Christendom for centuries to come. In the book of John, again, we read, we read, verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter ye shall see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man, pointing us to a symbolic representation of the Father's spiritual nature. A thorough understanding of DNA helps one to understand how genetic markers are copied from one side to the next, how all this works, how something like a cosmic download could take place. On one side of Jacob's ladder, if you think of the DNA structure as Jacob's ladder, is what it looks like. On one side of Jacob's ladder that is ascending, we see God's original cosmic download for humanity, while on the other side, we see a complementary strand descending. As a representation of the Father, he sent that same copied strand down into this confused earthly state. God comes into our world as the point of confusion, chaos, and darkness, and begins to change us by the light of his Son, Jesus Christ. Now the transmission of power begins to take hold as we begin to receive Christ. Not necessarily in any kind of religious sense. I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about that. But in regards to downloading all the information that has been copied to his Son, Jesus Christ's DNA. Jesus is the genetic marker that grants us the ability to do even greater works than the Father. Once you accept this cosmic download of Christ consciousness, you will have received the data, knowledge, and understanding of all things past, present, and future. Remember that all power in heaven and earth has been downloaded into our DNA, and death can no longer hold us in those mental, physical, and spiritual graves. God has redeemed the hands of time and has given us the spiritual blueprint to bring lost sheep to Christ, feed homeless people all over the world, clothe the naked, and to use technology to generate wealth at an alarming rate. God's cellular structure and spiritual frequencies operate outside of human comprehension and defy the law of physics and even gravity. Now you must rise and begin your project to project your mind renewal, for you are about to be born again, that cosmic download. The Word of God produces social change, which in turn grants you the authority to empower your community first. You have just now tapped into a level of consciousness that endows you with wisdom, compassion, love, power, honor, understanding, and a hope for a brighter tomorrow. Everything that you will ever hope to be is found in I am that I am. When Moses spoke to God and inquired about his meeting with the children of Israel in regards to what he should about who sent them, God replied and said, tell the children of Israel that I am sent you. These children were direct descendants of Canaan, which is now referred to as Palestine. But they were looking for an escape from the bondage of the lower mind chakra, or that guilt and fear which so easily beset their progression as a nation. Moses, as a deliverer unto his people, was given the task of aligning the spiritual and mental consciousness of these children back in harmony with God. God had heard the cries of his children and had seen their oppression, and as a witness promised that he would bring them up out of that mental affliction that so beset them in Egypt and open the lands that flowed with milk and honey. The key realization for Moses that wasn't apparent for the children of Israel was that God was in Palestine, in Canaan, with them all along, but they didn't realize it. Even during the murmuring and complaining, God, in his all-sufficient wisdom, gave the children of Israel and Moses, Akhenaten, Moses' name, Egyptian name, Akhenaten, life through a powerful truth that ye are gods. In regards to I am that I am, God was releasing the notion in a spiritual sense that the children of Israel, harmonious God thoughts, carry the DNA marker to redefine what is possible for their own situation. So, if the children of Israel thought that bondage was hard and that Pharaoh's noose on their necks was too tight, they could rethink this position through a mental series of reframed thoughts that placed their situation into a new context. They must now go from this conditioned mental state, we are in bondage, to a more unified mental disposition in which accepts their disconnected, confused state of mind, sin, and then begin formulating plans to have those scales removed from their eyes, like they did for Saul on his road to Damascus. In addition, they must now reconcile their disconnection from Christ consciousness and begin to realize that everything they seek is within their own control. Jesus' DNA revealed the I am that was in these children of Israel and sought to show them that they are co-creators of their own circumstances and must not remove the notion of victimhood from their mental state. Those outdated mental movies of past experiences kept replaying in their hearts and minds of the children of Israel for 40 years until they eventually got a revelation of the I am presence that was standing right in their midst. In The Cosmic Christ, Matthew Fox explained how Jesus was the revealer of the divine I am truth. He pointed out that Yahweh lives in the DNA. Prime Creator is in our DNA, and that we as partakers of this realization can tap into our own divine nature and embrace this divinity. These electromagnetic energies of love and light must be turned on and activated, opening portals and gateways into these various dimensions of understanding and cosmic truth. What are these portals and gateways, you say? What are they, you ask? They are revelations of Jesus' DNA frequencies that allow us to encounter God as our cosmic energy reaches our pineal gland, which is the spiritual center of the brain. Thus bringing our attention back to the importance of Moses' sojourns in Egypt as a leader, Akhenaten, who was commissioned to lead the children of Israel into the promised land. Moses was rebirthing a spiritual kingdom that had once previously existed, a kingdom that operated in oneness and the I am presence of God, a kingdom that was nothing more than man's consciousness objectified, a place where the I am presence was so strong that empires, kings and kingdoms, intelligence, wisdom, and understanding ruled the lay of the land. Say that unto yourself today, that I am, and receive that cosmic Christ consciousness download. Namaste. Namaskaram.